Smokey Yunick's insane Ford Boss 302 engine wasn't just a modified small block, but a calculated act of rebellion against Detroit, NASCAR, and everything they believed about speed. This is the true story of how Smokey Yunick turned Ford's Boss 302 into a rule-breaking monster that nearly rewrote racing history.
And with, talent running out both ears, and then went on to become arguably the best driver this country ever had. And
more than a mechanic, Smokey Yunick was a mindset hardened by war and sharpened by defiance. As a World War II fighter pilot and engineer, he learned that survival came from improvisation, not permission. That attitude followed him home and straight into American motorsport. NASCAR didn't see an innovator. They saw a problem they couldn't control. Every rule they printed became a challenge he felt obligated to solve or break intellectually. His Daytona garage looked less like a shop and more like an inventor's battlefield. Blueprints pinned with oil, engines torn open like anatomy lessons, rule books stained with gas and coffee.
Beach race was the beginning of the Daytona 500. We won the last race they had down there.
Smokey didn't chase trophies. He chased possibilities others weren't allowed to imagine. And when his path crossed with Ford's Boss 302, the mission was never just speed. It was proving that limits only exist for people who obey them. What he built next would terrify engineers and officials alike. The Boss 302 was already a marvel before Smokey touched it. Solid lifters promised durability at high RPMs, while the high revving architecture hinted at a pulse unlike any other small block. Its Trans Am DNA meant it was built to dance through corners and scream on straights. But Smokey's vision wasn't about handling finesse, it was about potential. To him, the stock intake and ports were a canvas, the restrictive factory runner shapes a challenge begging to be reimagined. Where others saw a legal race engine, Smokey saw untapped airflow, a reservoir of invisible power waiting for guidance. His mind raced through possibilities, port reshaping, plenum tweaks, atomization experiments. Each detail could yield seconds on the track that others wouldn't even consider.
Well, it wasn't uncommon for a motor company to bring a prototype automobile and set it down and say you do anything you want to it.
Smokey's obsession was simple yet radical. Airflow mattered more than displacement. Where other tuners focused on cubic inches, he obsessed over port shaping, controlling air velocity, and perfecting fuel mixture precision. Each curve, each angle in the intake and heads was optimized to let air glide with minimal turbulence. Smooth flow, he believed, produced consistent, predictable power. Something far superior to raw numbers that could betray you at 8,000 RPM. He experimented with cross-sectional areas, runner lengths, and intake surface finishes, treating air like a liquid that demanded discipline. Every modification was measured, tested, and visualized. Diagrams littered his workshop walls, airflow animations in his notebooks showing currents that no engineer at Detroit could comprehend. It wasn't brute force. It was cerebral domination of the invisible element powering every combustion. Smokey's intake philosophy was a silent revolution. He broke every accepted design, experimenting with boundary layer manipulation to coax fuel and air into perfect harmony. Plenum volume became a variable, tuned not by charts but by intuition honed over decades. Atomization tricks turned ordinary carbureted fuel into a near mist, improving burn efficiency at extreme RPMs. Where engineers thought limits existed, Smokey tested them relentlessly. Each runner, each manifold bend, each throttle placement was a chance to uncover hidden horsepower. His hand-drawn schematics looked chaotic, but every line had a purpose: airflow supremacy. In the shop, these weren't just blueprints. They were a manifesto. He had redefined what a small block Ford could do. Not with more cubic inches, but with air moving in ways Detroit hadn't imagined. Smokey thrived where others feared to tread, inside the fine print of NASCAR's rulebook. Every regulation became a challenge, every limitation a playground. Legal is a suggestion if you're smarter than the inspector, he'd quip. He studied each line, highlighted loopholes, and designed components that technically complied while performing far beyond expectation. Steel wheels, relocated steering boxes, oversized headers. Each innovation danced on the edge of compliance. Rules didn't constrain him, they forced ingenuity. If a regulation didn't forbid it, Smokey exploited it. Every decision was deliberate, balancing risk with reward. His philosophy was simple: don't break the law, outthink it. While others chased horsepower blindly, Smokey turned the constraints of legality into tools for dominance, creating cars that blurred the line between genius and audacity. And no one could match what his mind unleashed on engines next. Smokey's genius wasn't in parts, but in thought. His knowledge spanned aviation, thermodynamics, and racing dynamics, and these were disciplines most engineers never bridged. That crossover thinking produced solutions that seemed impossible. Headers twisted to guide airflow, steering boxes repositioned for efficiency, ports shaped with surgical precision. Others could mimic a component or a surface finish, but they couldn't replicate the thinking that produced it. Every Boss 302 felt illegal because it operated in ways others hadn't imagined, maximizing performance without technically violating a rule. While Pierce followed manuals, Smokey followed physics, intuition, and relentless curiosity. It wasn't trickery, sabotage, or cheating. It was a mind operating ahead of its era. And that mind ensured his designs remained untouchable, leaving competitors in awe and disbelief at what a single mechanic could achieve. The legacy of this approach would ripple far beyond one engine. The Boss 302 wasn't just a car, it was a blueprint for thinking differently. Smokey showed that efficiency could trump brute force, that innovation mattered more than budget. His approach influenced every small block that followed, from aftermarket tuners to factory engineers rethinking intake, airflow, and port geometry. Lessons from his Boss 302 echoed in later Trans Am racers, road-going performance cars, and even endurance racing prototypes. The machine itself became secondary to the mind that built it. Efficiency, airflow, and unconventional thinking became the new language of performance engines. Smokey proved that creativity, applied rigorously and intelligently, could eclipse corporate resources. His Mustang was more than metal and fuel, almost like a manifesto, a demonstration that brilliance could bend rules, redefine standards, and leave a permanent mark on engineering philosophy. The innovations he imagined would outlast even his lifetime. Smokey Yunick wasn't a rebel, he was a precursor. Long before CFD simulations, wind tunnels, or AI analysis, he visualized airflow, combustion, and mechanical harmony with intuition alone. Every runner, manifold, and header bend was tested in his mind and refined on the bench. Modern engineers marvel at how his decisions anticipated tools and technologies decades ahead. The Boss 302 became a living demonstration of foresight. The engine could perform like modern prototypes, guided by a human computer. Rules evolved, racing changed, technology advanced. Yet no innovation has replaced the mind that saw beyond constraints, beyond budgets, beyond what anyone thought possible. Smokey's work endures, not because of a car, but because of the ideas it carried, proving that true genius outlives the machines it creates. Engines evolved, but nobody ever replaced the mind behind them.